everyone. So this video is about my trip into Mexico and starting my treatments, but with every video that I post about treatments, it leads me into a story that happened pre-treatment. And so a lot of you know that I lost my sister 5 years ago, and she had heart failure, and it was because she needed a kidney transplant. And so the backstory about that is that she had, when she was younger, she had got strep throat. And I don't know if anybody is familiar with strep throat, but it is a horrible, really bad and dangerous infection. People don't look at it as dangerous, but it actually, it's a very dangerous infection that your body gets. And so anyways, she had gotten strep throat as a child, and it had gone on for a while because when we were younger, they're more in tune to things now than they were when we were younger. And it's so funny because you used to hear your grandparents say that, or even your parents, but it's true, even for us, doctors weren't in tune with a lot of stuff. And so my sister got strep throat. They had finally got it taken care of. And so she had started having trouble and went to doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. And so they just wrote it off as this, they wrote it off as that, which is very typical of doctors in the States. Sorry, but it's true. And so anyways, my little sister had went to a dermatologist to get on Accutane. And so, and for those of you that don't know, Accutane is a very, very strong antibiotic that actually kills acne from the inside out. And that's when your acne starts getting cystole and it gets really bad. The only way that you can cure that is literally killing it from the inside out. And so she goes on Accutane. And so being on Accutane, they have to monitor you profusively, monitor your organs, monitor your blood levels, all kinds of things. And so she goes on Accutane, the doctors are monitoring her, the dermatologists, and they found something odd going on with her blood. And so when they did more in-depth tests and research, my sister she was losing function of her kidneys. And so what had happened, and so you guys understand, and when I said strep is very dangerous, this strep had settled in her kidneys, and that's what strep does. If you let it go too long, the infection will actually settle in organs in your body. And so this is what happened with my little sister. And so, which, you know what, another seed in our life that God had planted for knowledge. And so she had done okay with the short amount of use, or the small amount of use that she had with her kidneys. And she got married and she got pregnant. And in this pregnancy is when her body started trying to shut down. Her kidneys were shutting down. We almost lost my niece because at that point it was too much trauma and stress to my sister's kidneys. And so she got through the pregnancy. She was never able to have children again because of this. And so after she had my niece, she started dialysis. And so they talked about her needing a kidney transplant. And so right from the get-go, when I found this out, I had stepped up immediately and volunteered to be her kidney donor. And so anyway, in this process of all of this, her husband had a lot of health issues, and so he was starting to get really sick, and they couldn't figure out what was going on with him. And so he started having a bunch of tests done, and his liver was failing. So now we have my sister who needs a kidney transplant, and now I have a brother-in-law that is losing his liver. And so in this whole process in my head, because I'm that person that wants to try to save everybody, I was like, how can I give my sister a kidney if I'm able to be her donor, and how could I give part of my liver to my brother-in-law? So there was this huge process, and so it was like weighing on me, and it was stressing me out. We were feeling bad, and so my sister and my brother-in-law are having different tests done for him. Meanwhile, we had tests done on me and her to see if we were compatible, if I was compatible as her donor. And so, anyway, we had a bunch of blood work done. We had it sent off, and we hadn't heard anything. So meanwhile, she's dealing with my brother-in-law. She takes him down to Phoenix to have some tests done. And the craziest thing, because his immune system was so low and his liver was failing so rapidly, that they had went and got something to eat, and something in the food had made him sick, and he ended up with E. coli. And the E. coli, because he was so weak, attacked his body at such a fast rate that it actually put him in the hospital, and it put him, he went into a coma. And so then he was on life support. And so here's this huge wall, this huge mountain for my family. And here's my sister losing her husband, but she also needs a kidney. And so my brother-in-law's in the hospital. He's on life support. And the decision came down to, my sister had to make the decision to turn off the life support. And I remember everybody being in this hospital room in ICU, and I could see the despair in my sister and his family and everything. And my father stayed home. He couldn't be there for this. And so I remember we were all standing in the room and waiting to turn the machine off, or waiting for my sister to turn the machine off. And I remember I couldn't breathe, I couldn't function. And I remember, you know, the stress of it all, because I couldn't imagine. And so I remember running out of the hospital and running down to the little chapel that they have in the hospital. And I remember getting on my knees, and the Bible was open, and it was talking about laying your life down for a friend, you know. And I remember reading that, and I remember praying to God, telling God, please, Lord, let me be my sister's donor, because I was the first one that got tested. Let the buck stop with me. Let me be her donor. Let this take the relief off of my sister, knowing that she has a donor, that someone's there for her. And so I said this huge prayer, and this is a true story. And so I remember having peace, go back up to the room where they were getting ready to shut the machine down, and we were standing there, and my sister made the decision to shut it off. And so we were watching my brother-in-law as he was taking his last breath. And the crazy thing is, when he took his last breath and there was a stillness in the room, the phone rang at the nurse's station, and it was my father. And the nurse came in, and she's like, Angela, your father's on the phone. And I remember going out there and getting on the phone, and my dad told me that the test had came back and I was a perfect match for my sister. So I was just like, thank you, God. And I told my husband that I had just prayed this, like I had just prayed this. And I told my sister, and so this moment of sadness for a brief moment turned into joy, because my sister had her older sister that was a perfect match, and she was giving her a kidney. So
why don't you ask?
We got through this. We got through the funeral. We got through. Sorry, I had a little blooper. So anyways, we get through the funeral, we get through all of this, and then we start the immediate process of all the testing for me, for my sister. And they put you, if anybody has ever volunteered to be a donor, if anybody could ever have that opportunity or be blessed to that opportunity to bless somebody, a donor has to go through excruciating testing. It's like 3 days of massive testing. And so my other sister and I went to the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale, and they put me through 3 days of extensive testing. And it was crazy, because even then, you know, the doctors, you know, they did all this blood work, and they asked me if I was a vegetarian. Even then, because my blood work was so impeccable, and I was just like, I giggled at that time, and I was like, no. So it made me feel good that I had this healthy, in my mind, I had this healthy organ that I was going to be able to give to my sister. And so for those of you that don't know too, it is harder for a donor to give an organ than it is for the recipient, because the detail of cutting them open and going through all of this stuff to just get that organ to give to the recipient. And so it was 3 days of massive testing, and you know, one thing after another. And so the last day of testing, the last test, the doctor was going through all of my charts, all of my stuff, and there in little fine print it said I was pregnant. So the doctor tells me this, and I was like, what does that mean? And he's all, you can't give your sister a kidney. And I was like, what? Like, I was like, God, what is going on? Like, I prayed, I'm a perfect match. What is going on? I told the doctor, I was like, look, you don't understand. I was like, this is my little sister. Please do whatever you need to do. Cut me open, go around the baby, go around it, do whatever you gotta do to take my kidney and give it to my sister. I was like pleading and crying, and he's like, I'm sorry. He's all, we can't do this. And I was like, God, why did you make me a perfect match? But you have allowed this to happen. And I remember my sister and I driving home, and I thought, I have to tell my sister I can't do this for her. And we got home, and I had to break the news to her, and she was upset. My whole family was upset. They were angry. I was angry. And I was just like, I don't understand. There has to be a reason. So that night, to cheer my family up, we all went to the fair, and there was her name is Tammy Imus, and she happened to walk up to me, and we were talking, and she asked me about the testing. She asked how everything went, and I told her what happened, and she immediately, like, she was the first person outside of my family that we had talked to about this, and she's like, I want to do this. She's like, I want to step up and give your sister a kidney. And so I was like, oh my God. And so I told her the process that she needed to go through, and I told her she didn't have to do this, and she's like, no, I want to do this. And so I was like, okay. And so she started the process. And so I remember asking my mother-in-law about this whole ordeal, and she's like, God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son in obedience, and so he did. He or he was going to. He walks him up to the mountain, and he was going to sacrifice his son to God in obedience to God. And when God saw his obedience, God told him to stop. I've seen your obedience. I have a sacrifice for you. There's a lamb, and there was this lamb. I'm sorry, my brain fogged right now, but there was an animal in the thicket for the sacrifice. And so that my mother-in-law explained that to me, and she was all, you were willing to lay your life on the line without hesitating, and God saw that and saw your obedience, so he saved you from doing that. But now you have to understand, because I was pregnant and I had gone through all these tests, there was a chance I was going to lose my child because of everything that they had done to me. And so I had all the doctors telling me that my body was going to abort this baby, that this child would have, you know, deformities or could be challenged, or so there was all of these things, the consequences of me going through this. And I just thought, this is not how I see God. Like, I don't see him allowing me to be her donor, taking it away from me, and then now I'm going to lose a child. But God got me through my pregnancy. Tammy was a perfect match for my sister. My sister got a kidney. And so all at that time was well because of God. So now we're going to jump forward. And I'm sorry to like get into this, but this is my life. This is my journey. This is my story. And so I have to share it as God sees fit, so you guys understand how everything comes together for God's glory. So we jump forward now. My sister did well with that kidney for about 5 years from Tammy, and then something happened and there was a lot of complications and her body rejected this kidney. So now we're back to square one. So then my family comes to me and tells me, which was tragic because I just felt when my sister lost that kidney, what a waste that Tammy had done this, and now Tammy has one kidney and now my sister has lost this kidney. So it was very tragic to my family and I that this had happened. And so time went on, my sister's body rejected this kidney, and we were all in scrambles. And so they put my sister back on dialysis, and for a brief moment in the time that my sister had the kidney, she got to live a normal life that she never had got to live before. So to see that was a blessing. So when she lost it, we're all scrambling around. Now my family's coming to me to give her a kidney, and I remember I was so stressed out. Now I had 3 more children, or 2 more children. I had 2 more children. Now I'm stressed out, and now I'm worried. I'm just like, we were in a financial change in our life, and so I prayed to God, and God's like, no, it's not time. And even my husband was praying, and he was like, no, it's not time. And so I couldn't understand what this block from God was. And so my sister literally went through several years of dialysis while I watched, knowing that I had her kidney, and God was telling me no. And so my family was very bitter to me, and God told me, your family needs to step up, your mom or your dad. And so I remember as time went on, and I approached my family and told my mom and my dad, you know, you guys have nothing. Your kids are grown. You have nothing not to lose, but if you were to die, we're grown. But you should be the one to give this to my sister. And so, as hard as it is to talk about this, this caused a huge family feud, family war. And no disrespect to my family, no disrespect, but this was what was going on, and I was continuously made to feel that I was being selfish because I wasn't giving my sister this kidney. So towards the end of her life, I spent days and nights for over a year, my sister in and out of the hospital, and I was watching her dwindle away. I was watching her suffer. I was watching her die. And I was like, God, I'm sorry, but to defy you, but I can't do this. I have to give my sister a kidney. I can't watch her die. I told my husband, I don't care what God told you. I have to do this. So I called the Mayo Clinic and I'm like, look, you guys have my sister on a donor list. I said, I'm her donor. I said, if you guys go back through your records, you're going to see that I'm a perfect match. I said, start the process. So they started the process, and my sister got so severely sick that she got put in the hospital. And I remember the last text that I had sent my sister said that, get better soon because I'm giving you my kidney. You don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to wait for anybody else to step up. I said,
she died a long time ago.
I'm giving you my kidney. So the process started. My sister got put in the hospital. I'm on a horseback ride with my friends, and my dad calls me on the phone and he's like, Angela, you need to get to town. He saw your sister went in the hospital and they don't know if she's going to make it. And I remember Sue and Londa, her mom, and Chelsea, and everybody, they comforted me all the way back to the house so I could get into town. My daughter Cheyenne was with me, my daughter Lucasey, we all rushed to town. And as soon as I got to the turnoff to the hospital, my dad had called me and told me my sister had died. And I remember screaming at God, screaming at him, why did you do this? Why did you take her? I had the organ that was going to save her life. I could have saved her life. Why did you do this? So I lived with this guilt for years that I could have saved her, but I didn't do it. And I'm so sorry, you guys. I lived with this guilt for so long that I could have saved her, and why didn't I just step up sooner? I felt like I was selfish. I felt like I held something so precious and didn't act on it fast enough. So I went through a very dark period for years, and I started scuba diving because my sister couldn't scuba dive, and I had a necklace that had her ashes in it, and then I'd take her everywhere. I mean, and then I had to stop scuba diving because I was having physical issues and couldn't figure out what was wrong. I started going on these crazy hikes and these rappelling off mountains, but was hurting all the time and couldn't figure out why. So it's like I just was doing everything, all these things that my sister couldn't do, and I would carry her with me because I was like, you know, she could have done this had I given her a kidney. So it was just this crazy part of my life, right? So I tell you guys that my other sister, I told you in previous videos that my other sister thought she had cancer. I prayed about that and told God to give it to me because I couldn't lose another sister. So now, you know, I'm carrying this burden because I felt the guilt so bad for my other sister. And so now this gets us into Mexico. They start me on these treatments. They put me in this hyperbaric chamber. I can't equalize. I told them it's the same thing when I was scuba diving. I had to quit scuba diving because I was having problems. So they couldn't figure out why my body was going through this reaction of this hyperbaric chamber, which is really good for you when you have cancer because it decompresses your body, and then they fill you up with oxygen. And so there's all these good properties. And so it was just one more thing I couldn't do. And I was just like, what is going on with me? So I start these treatments, and all of a sudden my body started going into, and this is all natural stuff, nothing bad, and they start giving me these stem cells shots, and they're giving me all of these, you know, intravenous like treatments that are all natural, good for you, and my body's going into shock. I'm waking up with sweat. I'm covered in sweat. I'm soaked in sweat. I was hurting really bad, like as if I had done a triathlon and my body was recovering. Like I was hurting from head to toe, couldn't understand why. Kept going back to the doctor, you know, every time I had an appointment with the doctor for my checkup there, they were checking on my treatments. They're asking me how I'm feeling, and I told them, I said, I hurt so bad. This pain is unbearable. What is wrong with me? You know, this is all good. Why is my body reacting like this? They took tests, they did more tests, they can't find anything. But they kept seeing that my inflammation was rising. And so through my blood test, but my cancer markers are dropping like crazy, all of this stuff. And so I remember being in so much pain. And I remember one night after treatment, I was laying in bed and I was in so much pain, and I was like, God, please, please help me figure this out. I'm here for you. You sent me here. I'm listening to your direction. Please help me. And this was a changing point too in my life, so you guys understand, because I told you guys I was so angry with God for what had happened to my sister, and I had carried that for so many years. But this was a true test of my faith and a true turnaround in my life from where I was with my bitterness. So I had prayed that night, God, please show me, help me figure this out, help me to help the doctors figure this out. And the next day, I am not lying to you, I get on the shuttle to go back to Mexico, and there's a gentleman sitting next to me. And you talk to different people for why they're in Mexico, and he asked me why I was there, and I told him, and I said, why are you here? And he's all, I have Lyme's disease. And I'm all, really? I've heard so much about that. I'm all, what are the symptoms? And he told me, and I swear it was like a light went off in my head. I got to the clinic that day. I told him I needed to see the doctor immediately. I told the doctor, I said, I want you to test me for Lyme's disease. And he was even like, really? And I said, yes, I want you to test me for Lyme's. They pulled my blood. 24 hours later, my test results come back. I have Lyme's disease. And they had marked me from having Lyme's disease since I was like 7 years old. This explained everything. I had this sense of relief that I wasn't crazy after all these years of doctors telling me this, that, and the other, trying to medicate me, and me denying medication, and all of this, because you guys have to understand, I don't do pain meds. Even both of my surgeries, I didn't do any pain meds. I would never take pain meds or anything that was a narcotic to help my pain for years, no matter muscle relaxers, everything. So here this doctor tells me this, and I felt this sense of relief that I wasn't crazy. And it explained why my body was going into shock. It's because their treatments, it was like it woke up the beast. And it was like it was full force attacking me. It explained all my years of working out, why I never recovered, why, you know, I just lived my life in constant pain, because I'd rather be in pain and know that I was healthy and working out than is to be in pain and not work out and not be healthy. And so it just, all of these answers were, or all these questions were answered. And so now they start pulling my Lyme's markers. So my cancer markers are dropping, but my Lyme's markers are just skyrocketing. And he's like, we can't get this under control. So the more, so you guys understand, the more I fight to keep cancer away naturally, the more pissed off my Lyme's gets. The more, so you guys understand, I live in a constant state of pain. There isn't a day that I don't wake up that I am not in constant pain, but to me, that pain shows that I'm doing the right thing, that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be, because it's pissing the Lymes off, it's attacking the Lymes. And so you understand too, people that get Lyme's disease and they catch it early enough, they can kick it, they can cure it. But because I've had Lyme since I was 7 years old, I will never cure this unless God above puts his hand on me and says you're cured. This will be a battle in my life for the rest of my life. So now this doctor and I are talking about this. Now this doctor and I are going through everything, backing up, assessing my life, assessing my history, and he's like, I truly believe this is why your cancer was brought on. And so it all made sense. And so I remember feeling a sense of relief. I remember thanking God. And I remember going in and sitting and getting my treatment, and I was just sitting there praying to God, and he was like, now you understand. If you would have given your sister a kidney, you would have killed her regardless. I had to take her to save her. And you, instead of saving one life, because of this journey, you are going to be helping to save a multitude of lives. And I just thanked God. I was just like, for the first time since my sister had died, I didn't have that guilt anymore. I didn't have that sadness. I didn't have that anger. I didn't have, I totally understood, because the Lymes would have killed her. Giving her my organ would have killed her, and I never would have been able to live with that. So the fact that God told me that saving a multitude of lives, helping a multitude, is more precious than one life. And I can't explain to you the peace that God gave me. And so I'm going to end my video there. I'm so sorry I'm crying and stuff, but this is my life. This is my raw transparency. This is my journey. So you guys can see how miraculous and wonderful God is. And even though we go through these trials and we think to ourselves, God, why? As hard as it is for you to understand, and as hard as it was for me to understand, you have to be still and trust that he's doing the right thing, regardless of how bad that hurts. So I love you guys, and I will talk my next video about the different treatments and get into specifics and break it down and I'm so excited, and thank God above that I'm able to share this journey with you. And I thank God for those that are following this and seeing how this journey has been not a burden, but been such a wonderful experience for me, and it's still a wonderful experience. And I feel so blessed at how many people God is bringing into my life that I can help and make aware. And I'm sorry for all the skipping around. I'm sorry for this, but this is my life. And as crazy as it sounds and as jumbled up as it is, and I'm sorry for that, it's just, I share the best I can. And so I just appreciate all of you that listen. And so I love all of you. Keep faith, never give up hope, never give up, never quit, and always, always, always pray to God for all your needs, because He listens and He's there. I promise you. So I love you guys.